So Mary Ann Nichols was born in August 26, 1845 in London. Growing up in her working class family, she faced hardships and realities of life from very early age. Her father was a carpenter and he worked to provide for the family, but the mother managed household, bringing sense of determination for Mary. But as she transitioned to an adult, weight of hardship began to overtake everything. She married George Nichols, who was a printer, but unfortunately the marriage was fraught with difficulty. Mary left. So she moved to the bustling streets of Whitechapel, where she took a few jobs to support her family. It was really not a very good place to move into, but she moved there because she could find some work as a seamstress and a domestic servant. But the wages were so small, she could not make ends meet because of the children. After so many years of hardship, George passed away unexpectedly, and she was left a widow. She was very heartbroken, but she was undeterred. She resolved to provide for her family and continue with life. She took residence in a lodging house where she struggled to maintain stability for her children. But the streets of Whitechapel were just hard. She navigated the grave realities of life as a single mother in these streets. Despite her circumstances, she made friends with other women who were in a similar situation, forming a bond of solidarity of those who were struggling and the residents of Whitechapel. They shared so many stories, laughter, and they had a supporting system in a world that seemed unforgiving. She was left alone now to fend for herself. By summer of 1888, Mary found herself in a precarious situation. With her children gone and living their own lives, she turned to the streets for companionship and support. Her life had become entangled with the darker elements of society, where she struggled to make ends meet. And she relied on kindness of strangers. While she was out there, she became a victim of Jack the Ripper. Her body was found in Bucks Row, beginning of a chilling chapter in London's history. The news of a tragic death shocked the whole London, and women became so afraid in the streets. She became a symbol of struggles faced by women in the Victorian era. Her story, once filled with dreams and aspirations, had taken a dark turn, but it really serves as a catalyst for change. In the wake of her murder, the outcry for justice cries and increased awareness surrounding women's safety and socio-economic struggles. This tragic end highlights the urge and need for reforms and compassion in a society that often turned a blind eye to the vulnerable people, such as how her investigation went on, but her memory went on and encouraged many to fight for justice and inequality for women. Her story just became a poignant reminder of the resilience of a human spirit. Even in the face of unimaginable adversity, her life may have ended in tragedy, but her legacy continues, reminding of others to strive hard for tomorrow. Now we go to Annie Chapman. Annie Chapman was born in 1841. She was a daughter of a well-respected farmer, and she lived a country life. She was known for her spirited nature and a mind that could light up the gloomiest of days. However, as she grew older, the realities of life began to take their toll on her, leading her far from the idyllic childhood that she once was. And in her late teens, she moved to London just to seek opportunities, and she married a man called John Chapman, and together they had 3 children. But sadly, life took a turn when 3 children died in infancy, leaving Annie heartbroken. So the couple eventually faced further difficulties, and primarily because of alcoholism, they struggled. So the strain on marriage became too much, and in the 1880s, they had already separated. Now she became a single mother and worked to provide for herself. She took various jobs as a domestic servant and seamstress, but the work wasn't much and she couldn't pay bills. It was a harsh reality. And she found herself living in increasingly dire circumstances in London, Whitechapel. She eventually moved to Whitechapel, where it's known that the place is poor. So in the late 40s, her life was a tapestry woven with hardship, and she often relied on charity of others and sought solace to other women who lived and worked in the area. Despite the challenges she faced, she was very caring. But in 1888, in the streets of Whitechapel, brutal murders had begun to take place, and women were warned to stay indoors, and the police increased their patrols. But she continues to navigate the streets, and she needed to survive. She had to go to the streets of Whitechapel just to survive. So on the night of September 1888, Annie found herself in the similar routine. She had been drinking with friends at a local pub with the company and laughter, and as the night wore on, she decided to make her way home afterwards. Little did she know that the Reaper was waiting just round the corner. At around 5:30 on that Saturday, Annie's body was found in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street. She had been brutally murdered, and the scene was horrific. The police just arrived to find a lifeless body, and the news quickly spread throughout the neighborhood. Jack the Ripper had done it again. The police were thrown into frenzy, just trying to find the killer before more lives were lost. The elusive nature of the Ripper was in a way that they couldn't find him. Going in the night, you have to be careful, but she went in the night. She just became a symbol of tragedy. She lives on in the minds of those who know her, and together seeking justice for her and other victims. It highlighted the need for compassion and support for those who are marginalized by society. Though Jack the Ripper became the legacy, her life and tragic, her end became a poignant. In the years to come, Annie would not be forgotten. Her story will continue to be told. The ongoing discourse and the rise of women and the need for social reform.